We have the next session is Women Diplomats and their multiple challenges. I request Mrs. Ruchi Ghanashyam, Mrs. Deepa Gopalan Wadhwa, and Mrs. Ambreen Khan to please come up on the stage. I apologize for the delay, but we continue with the session shortly. Yeah. So I request Mrs. Ruchi Ghanashyam, Mrs. Deepa Gopalan Wadhwa, and Ambreen Khan with Reema Huja to come up on the stage and unveil this book. Ma'am, please. All of you all. Can we have a big round of applause? This book is written by Ruchi Ghanashyam, an Indian woman in Islamabad. As the first Indian diplomat, a huge round of applause please. As the first Indian woman diplomat in Islamabad, Ruchi Ghanashyam unveils the complexities of cross-border relations and history's relentless course through political upheavals. From 1997 to 2000, she and her husband witnessed pivotal events: the India-Pakistan nuclear tests, the Kargil conflict, and the tense moments leading up to the IC-814 hijacking, as recounted firsthand by A.R. Ghanashyam. Amidst geopolitical, thank you very much, ma'am. Amidst geopolitical turbulence, Ambassador Ghanashyam offers a deeper perspective, exploring gender dynamics in a tradition-bound society while highlighting both challenges and potential for change. Her insightful analysis peels back layers of societal norms, presenting a compelling view of the region's socio-political landscape. This powerful and timely work underscores the enduring role of diplomacy in shaping global affairs. Our session is Women Diplomats and Their Multiple Challenges. We have focused onto the world of diplomacy, specifically the experiences and challenges faced by women in this field. Mrs. Ruchi Ghanashyam, a distinguished diplomat who joined the Indian Foreign Service in 1982. Her career has included postings in key capitals like Islamabad, and she served as High Commissioner to Ghana, South Africa, and the United Kingdom. Her book offers a unique perspective on cross-border relationships and the challenges of diplomacy. Joining her is Deepa Gopalan Wadhwa, another highly accomplished diplomat who joined the IFS in 1979. She has served as the Ambassador of India to Japan, Qatar, and Sweden, and has held significant assignments in various international organizations. She was recently honored by the Japanese government for her contributions to India-Japan relations. Moderating this important conversation is Ambreen Khan, a media marketing and communications expert and adjunct professor at Jamia Millia Islamia and Jindal Global University. She currently heads communications for the Indian Express. In diplomacy, as Vijay Lakshmi Pandit wisely stated, we must build bridges of peace, not walls of division. I would request our speakers to take us to the journey of her profound experiences. The stage is yours. Ma'am, is your mic on? I would help you.
At the bottom.
Yes, it is. Yes.
So hello everyone, good afternoon. We thought when we came to Bhopal yesterday, we thought it's going to be quite pleasant in the afternoon, but it isn't. Despite of the fact that we're really blessed that we are sitting right across the lake. Where do you find this? The crisp air, thandi hawa sham ko, and dopahr mein something like this. So thank you very much. It's a very difficult task for me when you have such company on stage. I don't know where to begin with, but just to overcome my nervousness, I'm going to ask a very interesting and a simplistic question to both of you. Why do you have any connection with Madhya Pradesh, with Bhopal, that I've seen that there's little excitement in your, in your body language, in your tone, and there's a little, maza in your आपकी नजरों में मजा होता है the moment we say Bhopal. We'll begin with that.
You want to go ahead? Okay. Thank you so much, Ambreen, and before anything, let me thank BLF for inviting me. It's a great pleasure to be here, and as you said, कि मजा तो है, because this is my city. This is where I grew up. This is where I did my college. On one side of the lake, not this one, the other lake. MLB college used to be those days on the Chota Talab. And I just met one of my students, Vinay. He was in Ahmediyya College, and I taught there briefly, but Vinay was one of the, the best student in my class. So that's true. This is my city, this is my state.
Lovely. Big round of applause. Warm up for a student of Bhopal College, right?
Yes.
And me, Ambreen, I wish I could say that my connection was as direct as hers, but it's extremely close because my husband grew up here in Bhopal and he's from Campion School. And I think here we have in the audience a very good childhood friend of hers, Harleen, who's here. And because of his Bhopal connection, we kept coming back, to all the school reunions where I knew nobody, but I slowly got to know a lot of people and we love coming back here. So I think that's my connection to Bhopal because my father-in-law was in the medical services of Madhya Pradesh. And Anil finished from Campion School, but then went on to Delhi. But it's a lovely city, and every time I come here, I'm quite amazed. And then I have very close friends here also in the audience. We have Anshu Vaish here and a lot of other, colleagues from the bureaucracy. People who opted for Madhya Pradesh because it was a very good cadre to come and work in. So that's my connection, Ambreen.
And I just wanted to add, because Asha ma'am is sitting here, and actually it was Behel sir, her brother, father, because of, time, it seems like her father who helped me prepare for the civil services. So I appeared for the civil services in Bhopal, and I was selected also when I was in Bhopal.
Lovely, lovely. Now these are the tales which we need to, and them as Ambassador Wadhwa, Anil Wadhwa's tales and your tales of college you can share over a drink in the evening. So, I mean, I don't know where to, 40 minutes or 45 minutes, I would say would be very short to cover their journeys, their experiences. And they are they are global trotters, if I may say, and extremely accomplished women, hugely inspiring. But let's hear it from them. My first and opening question, and then we will just go through the whole, and I would encourage audiences to be in conversation, and I'm just an anchor who's just going to say, "Acha, ab ye baat kar lete hain." But you have to be in conversation with both of them, and but I'll do the opening. My question to both of you, Ambassador Deepa Wadhwa and Ambassador Ruchi, that how does, give us andar ki baat. How does the whole world operate? So how does the world of diplomacy works globally?
Very, very tough question. I don't know, after about 36 years doing this job, what one really knew. But I'll tell you what I think fundamentally, it's about people building bridges. And I think people have much more of an influence on global decisions than we can even imagine. I mean, I think we see it now with Trump. There's this one man who's made a change. I was posted in Japan, and you mentioned that as my last posting. And the entire relationship with Japan, the one man who made a great change in this relationship, not a diplomat, but a leader, was Prime Minister Abe. And, we are really executors of the policies of the government of the day. And it's very often a very pleasurable task when you're able to do something positive and something comes out of it, which is, and of course, and as Ruchi puts in her book, there are a lot of challenges. And as Ruchi lived in Pakistan in very, very difficult times, I lived in China at a time when, China was a completely different world than it is today. It's also very interesting because through those times, you look at areas where the two countries can kind of agree, cooperate, take the relationship forward. So you look at it at different levels. I mean, look at the political level, you look at the economic level, you look at the level of cultural relations, and then you look at the level of, better contacts between the people. So diplomacy, this is what the world of diplomacy is about. And I think it's really very much a people's kind of a job, which at least that's the aspect of which I enjoyed the most. And meeting people around the world, and even if you're looking at international, negotiations in the UN, and Ruchi was there in New York, in the heart of all of that. You have 192 representatives around a room trying to agree on one particular thing, and you have to make very, very good human contacts. You have to be good diplomats, but this is really a lot about human contacts.
That was a very comprehensive answer. I think it's hard to top that. As I see it, diplomacy operates at 3 levels. One is the relationship between leaders, government to government, leader to leader. The other is the institution to institution. So university to university, trade body to trade body, and different institutions to different institutions. And the third is the people to people. And all 3 are actually very important. Sometimes some decisions I think, they happen because the leaders have a very good equation. But sometimes the people can be so, influential that they can actually impact how a decision is made. An institution, of course, because there will be pressures from the institutions. To give one example, there was a decision by the British government a few years ago to increase the salary level on which they would give the visa to students. Students who studied in the UK, there was a certain threshold of salary. If they got a job paying that amount of salary, the work visa was given to them for a couple of years, I think. Now they increased that. So it became harder for students to go to UK to study and to get, because they couldn't get jobs which were paying so well. Now the institutions, here the universities, because the universities started losing students, because Indian students started going to Canada, Australia, other countries. And the universities started putting pressure. So lobbies can operate. As you said, andar ki baat. The lobbies can operate, whether it's a lobby of institutions, whether it's a lobby of people. For example, when India is talking about, giving access to foreign law firms, it's the bodies of, lawyers who will be arguing or lobbying against that. So lobbies do matter. And at the end of the day, it depends who is more influential in a particular situation.
But according to the two of you with so much experience, and of course being in the utmost leadership positions for both of you, and in very complex men's world, whether it was Japan and yourself being in London and being diplomats also in conservative societies. My question is a very basic question, but I think it's an important one, which is that do women make better diplomats than men? Say yes.
I would definitely agree. I would definitely agree, though it's a man's world, diplomacy is still a man's world. I think over the years things have changed or are changing, not as fast as they should. But I think women do bring certain traits to the job. And I think one of those which I feel is very important is that women are good listeners. Women have good empathy. And many times in difficult situations, the soft touch can be very useful.
Just a minute ago, I would have said women make better diplomats, but one of my seniors just walked in, Ambassador Nalin Suri, and now I cannot say that. But I must say the challenges were quite huge. I think both of us. But the challenges were quite big when we started. It is true that women are empathetic and so on, but you've got to look at the environment in which you also work. And I'll tell you, sometimes there are certain advantages, and I'll give you as an example. I was posted in Qatar. I was the first woman to be posted to the Middle East. to the Gulf, not the Middle East. We had somebody in Cairo, but to the Gulf. And I know a lot of my colleagues, and I think including Ambassador Suri, wondered what in the world was the government thinking of. You know, we're normally sent to places because of some sort of expertise, either it's language expertise or area expertise. I was sent to the Gulf because my mother tongue happens to be Malayalam, and I speak Malayalam and Tamil, and because of the huge diaspora there. So I go to this country, you know, where there are 2 Indians for every 1 Qatari. Can you imagine that? And when you're there as a woman, so people said, you know, how will the Arabs take you? They would have to deal with you, first of all, because you were Indian, irrespective of your gender. That was the first thing, because you were such an important country. But I had a very, very strange advantage I found. When I first went, I was the only woman there. No other woman ambassador. I was the only woman ambassador. But then I found that I had access to the women of Qatar, which the male ambassadors didn't have. And this was a time when, you know, Qatar was changing. The Sheikhas had a lot of power. I don't know if you've heard of this famous woman called Sheikha Moza, who was the second wife of the emir, and she changed the whole education system and science and technology and so on. But I had access to a lot of women. And sometimes I could go to them with even issues that had to do with problems of our blue-collar labor. We could go to them and you could talk to them, and they were more empathetic. So sometimes being a woman can be an advantage. Very often, you know, you have to get over prejudices. And I'll tell you, strangely, when I started many years ago, I think it was in China, I used to have a nose ring and I used to wear a bindi. I took both off because I was asked whether this really hurt. And, you know, and I knew Chinese, and wondering about, you know, what did I have? Was that permanent on my forehead or whatever? You want to take attention away from you in the sense that you can deal with men, so don't get distracted with all these strange things that, you know, you seem to embody. So there are challenges like that, but I think in some areas, and when dealing with labor and issues like that in the Middle East, certainly I think being a woman was a great advantage in the sense, I mean, I looked at every you know, blue-collared worker in trouble, like almost like a child, a son, a brother, you know. There was that whole thing, I think, that nurturing aspect of women which comes out.
So in a room which is packed with Qatari or Middle Eastern men and yourself, and also in Pakistan for yourself, I don't know how many of you all know that she also worked in Pakistan, and how many?
On Pakistan.
On Pakistan, but you traveled extensively to Pakistan. And then Ambassador Ruchi was, she was you know, a full-fledged diplomat working in Pakistan. So in a room which, and maybe Mr. Suri could also comment on that, a room packed with these kinds of conservative men, so-called, at least in their own countries, how did you navigate your agenda and your policy, you know? How did you, tell us about some tricks of the craft, because this is also being recorded, okay, and there are a lot of people who would want to, I would want to, at my age, I've been working for almost 25 years, I would also want to learn. It's all, same thing as in media, it's always so much more tougher for women, but women take a lead, and that's what you see. First, dil se dono ki aap हौसला अफजाई करें, welcome करें, people from Bhopal, people from outside, and then we would get on to. So please tell us that. Give us, maybe you could share some interesting instances when you had your way, despite of a lot of men, you know, part of the boys' club, they didn't want you to be heard as much, not only there, but even in our own North Block.
Well, in Pakistan, men are generally very courteous. People are very courteous. They are very polite, and they make an effort for not making anybody feel out of place in personal interactions. Official level is another thing. But there was one occasion, you know, when I joined service, in India we don't really have a habit of extending your hand to someone, to shake hands with people. And I come from a conservative family. Bhopal is, you know, a fairly conservative kind of place. Not conservative, but traditional place. And so I didn't really have this habit of shaking hands with people. But by the time I went to Pakistan, I had acquired this particular trick of the trade, that when you meet someone, you shake hands with them. So in Pakistan, there was one occasion when I went to meet my counterpart, the director India. And as usual, I just extended my hand without thinking about it. And to my shock, he just put his hand here and he says, "Sorry, but in my faith, I cannot shake hands with women." Now, I know that in Iran they don't do that, but I didn't know that in Pakistan also there may be people who don't do that. So, but that was that. After that, I mean, I recovered my wits quickly, and we were able to talk. And sometimes what we had to tell each other was hard, but most of the time we tried to tell hard things nicely, with some finesse. Though in Pakistan you have to, most of the time say hard, tough words. The other occasion that I remember, which was a bit embarrassing, was that I love emerald green color, and one of my favorite saris used to be an emerald green sari, plain sari with a little small border from crepe sari from Bangalore. And I used to wear it with a plain green blouse. And I went to meet Director India. That day I was wearing that plain green sari, dark green, with a plain green blouse. And as soon as I entered, he said, "Oh, today you look like the flag of Pakistan." And from that day onwards, I stopped wearing that sari. So that was embarrassing. But other than that, most of the time I found that men were very courteous, and there really wasn't much of a difficulty in engaging with them. When you had to tell hard things, you told hard. I learned how to do that in Pakistan actually, because I was grown up in a very traditional family. So we didn't say hard things to people. But in Pakistan, I learned that when you have to say tough things, then you say it as politely as you can.
It's very strange, Ruchi, you talk about this green color. Once I wore a green fairan when there were bilateral talks at the Foreign Secretary level. And this is exactly what happened to me. Because I was in the Indian side, and the Foreign Secretary of Pakistan got up and said, "Maybe you should come and sit on our side." And I didn't realize, So I think they have this attachment to the color. But I completely agree with you, and I know your book is replete with these kind of examples. Fundamentally, I think Pakistan's a South Asian nation. It was quite easy dealing with the men. I mean, not socially, but officially it was fine. And Pakistan has a lot of women diplomats too. And I think over the time, the numbers have grown. So you could deal with them. There was a time, and this shaking hand thing, I think it started in Ziaul Haq's time, when he forbade women from shaking hands with strange people. And there was this one story that my husband is here in the audience, and there was this Pakistani lady diplomat who was in the Netherlands. We were there together, and it was very strange. Her husband would shake hands with me, but she would not shake hands with my husband. So at one point I said there seems to be some sort of a symmetry here. But that's when it happened, I think, when they started that. But otherwise, I mean, you could deal with them. They were fine. And socially, maybe, it was, we were always dealing with them officially. You dealt with them more socially. There is one story that Ambassador Lakshmi Puri, who will be joining us tomorrow here, she had to say, in our Foreign Office, for some reason or the other, and I don't think this was planned, we had 3 or 4 women in succession dealing with Pakistan. And I think I was number 3, and after me there were many others also. And the Pakistanis thought that this was some kind of wicked strategy that we had, because we kept sending our women over there. But one of the trips when I think Ziaul Haq was there, Lakshmi will be able to corroborate this, when she went, they tried to exclude her from some of the meetings. So, I mean, never really happened with me. But this could have happened. I mean, this did happen with her. I think when we went, and we get along, we have the thing with us as South Asians is, and more with, I think, with Pakistan than perhaps the others, our sense of humor, the whole British traditions, and, the kind of, when you talk to each other, the sort of jokes that you share and things. There's a huge thing really that binds us. And I'm not Punjabi, my husband is. I'm from the South. But I still feel that. It's very, when you're abroad also, some of your best friends really end up being Pakistani diplomats to a point. And as Ruchi says, and then when you have to read out, what you have to, take that hard line, I think we're as tough as anybody else. And I always felt that when you were interacting with Pakistanis, and particularly even socially, and with women too, everything was fine till you mentioned the K word. And you know what the K word is. And then everything, K word's Kashmir. And then, everything completely goes out of kilter. But that was my own experience.
So, as we switching now, slowly and gradually to the book, I want to start with someone who I've admired personally, and not only for his bandwidth, but also for his really good looks, Mr. Shiv Shankar Menon. And he was a foreign, a lot of people know, but for those who do not know in the audience, he was a foreign secretary, and also he was our national security advisor. He says for the book that this is a book to instruct diplomats, delight the general reader, and inspire women of all ages. So how brilliantly he's put this together. And then we have, of course, endorsements and beautiful comments from the other diplomats. But I thought that we'll start off with Shiv Shankar Menon's endorsement. I would want now Ambassador Deepa to tell us about what are the highlights of the book that you would want to bring about as a co-diplomat, and also someone who's worked with Pakistan or on Pakistan, maybe before or after yourself as the author, that why you've traveled, you've been ambassador in various countries, but why did you only choose Pakistan as your topic in particular?
I'll just start, and I think then Ruchi can really say, I really enjoyed the book because of also Ruchi's style. It's a very simple style. It's a very straightforward style. And it's full of little anecdotes. And it's so funny because I was handling Pakistan 10 years before you. And, nothing really had changed. The generosity of the Pakistanis, the friendship of the women that you met, the women in very good positions there. And also this whole pall of fear. So what happened was, very often when I went on short trips, and I think Ruchi talks about this at great length, of being shadowed all the time. The discomfort of being shadowed all the time. I recall whenever I went to Pakistan, on day 1 or 2, I'd look around, I'd see the same face around me. And then I'd suddenly find the same person sitting in the reception as I came down from the hotel. And after some time, we'd start smiling at each other. And after some time, we'd start saying Assalamu alaikum to each other. And then say Khuda Hafiz. And there was one time when I got lost, I was looking, there were 2 markets there, I remember, in Islamabad of the past, the time when we were there. And very strange names. One was called Jinnah and one was called Super Jinnah. And how they named 2 malls like that. And I remember getting lost once. And this guy came up and said, what are you looking for? And then guided me there. So, there was the scary part of being always tailed. And there was also the other part of it, that at some point of time you could relate to them. So I think, one of the things that Ruchi talks about, she takes it with such good humor and in her stride. And, she's able to evade them at some point of time. The other thing I empathize with hugely is in that kind of environment, the fact that she was also a wife and a mother. And, bringing up children in that kind of environment. Very often what happens with us is, we play this kind of double role in our lives. I mean, we're diplomats, we're one of the men, we like to be one of the men. But there is at the back of it, you have children and you're the nurturing mother. And there have been such difficult times that you have Ruchi, when you have Kargil and so on, and there she has to be sitting through the night, through odd hours, just, putting the family behind her and working with the children. And I think, and I should say this, that I think we are always watched as women. Because I had this own experience when I was a young officer dealing with Pakistan, because I think the boss thought, let me see whether she's up to this. I felt being tested. But I won't say beyond that. Ruchi, over to you, I think.
No, Deepa is absolutely right. Women are constantly tested. I think everybody, people generally want to probe the depth. How far can she go? That same kind of testing does not seem to happen with men. Um, I always believe that when a woman makes a mistake, the brush is generally used for all women. So if the woman is taking time off or is shirking, then it tends to reflect generally for all women. But when it's a man, then it's just the man, that particular individual. It is not used as a kind of characterization for all men. So that way women do have, I think they do face the challenge. But to come to the question that you asked me, why I chose to write about Pakistan. So from the time I served in Islamabad, and because particularly also because Ghanashyam went to Kandahar, he was the first person to go to Kandahar when IC-814 was hijacked. So ever since then, whenever I would meet someone, almost universally, the first question that people would want to know is, what was it like? Did they follow you? Did you face trouble? Were they, So there was always this curiosity, and then people would. Then I came back from Pakistan, and I was Director Pakistan, and that was the time that the attack on the Indian Parliament happened, and we had that troops were mobilized on the borders. So that that again used to cause a lot of discussion, and every time that Ghanashyam and I would be asked, okay, where all have you served? And the moment we would say Islamabad, they say, oh, you served in Pakistan. And then that would be automatically everybody would want to know about Pakistan. So when I started, after retirement, when I started thinking about writing, then I thought, okay, maybe this is the question that I should first try to answer, because there is no single answer that one can give to that. There are different aspects to one's life in Pakistan, and then we lived through such eventful times that it was, in any case, it was interesting. And I feel that people who have served in such situations actually have a duty to record, because it's in a way it's history. So if we do that, we at least record it for people to read about it. So that was the reason.
But if I ask a similar question to a man, a diplomat, who served as the High Commissioner in Pakistan, maybe Ms. Ambassador T.C. Raghavan, or Manishankar Iyer, or even Shiv Shankar Menon, what would be their level of challenges? What do you think that their challenges would be more unique or different than being a woman diplomat in Pakistan?
I think anybody who serves in Pakistan, whether it's a man or a woman, they all face challenges. And at the end of the day, we may speak lightly about the challenges which women may face compared to their male counterparts. But at the end of the day, we are there to represent India and to, we are part of the Indian mission. And our job is to deal with the Pakistanis. And in that job, whether it's a man or a woman, they both face the challenges. So they would have also felt the same challenges. Yeah, there is, in dealing with the challenges, for instance, on social occasions, women would get clubbed with other women because there's well, even when there is no formals in Ana Mardana, though I have been part of that as well, because when you go to a wedding, the man and the woman are separated, and you go to the the women are taken to the women's section and the men are. So I have attended weddings where I didn't know who the host was, because I only knew the hostess. So in that sense, the challenges that women would face, would be somewhat different from those that, but at the bottom of it, the crux of it, the challenges for both men and women are the same.
Similar.
I completely agree, and I think most of our members of the Foreign Service, if they got an opportunity to serve in Pakistan, would absolutely say yes, because that's what we want. We want the challenges. It's an interesting posting. There's so much you can do, you can contribute, unless you have very strong personal reasons, which has nothing to do with diplomacy. I think it was a very coveted posting, both to be in Islamabad and the olden days Karachi, as well as to be in the desk in the ministry to deal with Pakistan. And I think that is true of all of us.
But today, in a highly polarized climate globally, where do you think, or maybe you could just, just tell us that where does your craft and the method of being hardcore diplomats, your career diplomats, where do you see the interplay being, maybe, there's a gap or something that you want to just get up and you want to tell them that, maybe you could handle the situation better as compared to what it was and what it is today. So any maybe instances you want to bring about, or maybe you want to talk about that craft and method which could be imbibed, maybe soft or hard methods, could be imbibed as being more effective diplomats today. And I insist on highly polarized political climate today.
I believe that the atmosphere between India and Pakistan remains polarized regardless of the flavor of the season. Because the nature of the two, of the relationship is such that whether you're smiling at each other or frowning at each other, but the fundamental questions are the same. They don't go away. So you may have times when you are talking in a more congenial way, and you may have times that you're not talking at all, but the fundamental issues remain the same. I personally feel that India should focus on its own development, and as India grows, as India develops, I think the logic of better relations with India would become more apparent to the establishment in Pakistan. And I think slowly that tide is at least turning, because people in Pakistan are beginning to talk about how India is growing, how India is doing. And polarized or not, but I believe that we are on the basic issues, we are always polarized.
I think as an important neighbor, and whichever your neighbors are, you cannot be in a state of not talking forever. That's not I think correct, or doesn't make sense or logical. And I think we, as a government, I think we played this right, because terrorism is an absolute non-negotiable. And I think that's the message that went through very clearly, not only to Pakistan, but to the world. And you do see now, I think, because of this persistent, effort of ours, that even globally there's this whole thing, the FATF, and how they got, got into this sort of out of the grey zone into the black zone, being blacklisted, and everybody looks at it as kind of a center of global terrorism. I think we've had a role to play because we were the ones who suffered the most. Having said that, it is at many levels, and Ruchi talks about the economic relationship, and I think increasingly the Pakistanis are looking at us with a certain amount of envy, how well we've done. And I recall again when I used to go there in the 80s, I can assure you that Pakistan looked more prosperous than India. And that's completely changed. If you look at the figures, that's completely changed. So, I mean, what could we do together? And the whole thing of the economic relationship, everything, the trade now goes via Dubai instead of going directly, and then there is the people connect. And I think that's something we have to keep alive.
And music and art.
And music and art and culture. But I do think with Nawaz Sharif back, and I'll mention also why. I was once, twice in my life, I have been there when he was been meeting our Prime Minister in different, occasions in different parts of the world. And he came through as someone who said, look, I am your best bet. I really want peace with India. But of course, there was the army, there were all lots of other things around him, and I think perhaps some of those, in some ways, that situation is perhaps worse when you look at the radicalism in Pakistan. And I don't know whether he has a handle on the military yet, but he himself seemed to be, and I suppose that perhaps was also a reading of ours, that if you did want to make some sort of not peace, but at least start talking on crucial issues, the time perhaps was when he was there.
We just wind up.
How much time?
We are just.
We're done. Okay. So let's take a couple of questions, and then we'll start summing up. Please identify yourselves. Comment. Feel free to say.
Madam received her first, and please.
Would somebody pass on the mic to her? Yeah.
नमस्ते, मेरा नाम नम्रता है। आपका आपके शहर झीलों की नगरी में बहुत बहुत स्वागत है। और सबसे पहले तो आप दोनों की बहादुरी के लिए बहुत बहुत हम सलाम करते हैं। बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया हमारे देश के लिए, आपने इतनी मेहनत की, इतना हम लोग को सुरक्षा दी है। दीपा मैम, मेरा सवाल आपसे है कि आजकल हम देखते हैं कि न्यू डिप्लोमेट्स जब अंतर्राष्ट्रीय मंच पे कुछ बोलते हैं तो वो रातों रात वायरल हो जाता है या सब तक पहुंच जाता है। तो आपका इस पर क्या टेक है, या आप जब अपनी सर्विस को देखते हैं कि आप क्या सोचते हैं कि आपके एक ज़माने में अगर ऐसा होता तो आपके काम भी हम तक पहुंच पाते, या ये देश की सुरक्षा के लिए ठीक नहीं है? थैंक यू।
थैंक यू। मुझे एक्सक्यूज़ करना चाहिए, मेरी हिंदी इतनी साफ़ नहीं है, जितनी हो सकती मैं बोल सकती हूँ। ये जो सोशल मीडिया है, इससे पूरी आई थिंक द डिप्लोमेसी ही चेंज हो गई है। हमको बहुत केयरफुल रहना चाहिए, होना पड़ता है आजकल, क्योंकि ये जो हम बोलते हैं वो इफेक्ट कर सकता है रिलेशंस को। बट ऑन द अदर हैंड आई थिंक जो डिप्लोमेसी था एक आइवरी टावर की तरह था, इट वाज अवे फ्रॉम द पीपल। आजकल हम लोग लोगों से हमारी आउटरीच इज मच बेटर। आप समझ पा रहे हो कि हम क्या करते हैं, कि जो पब्लिक डिप्लोमेसी का कॉन्सेप्ट है कि आफ्टर ऑल हम लोग आपको रिप्रेजेंट करते हैं ना, आपको पता होना चाहिए कि हम करते क्या हैं। तो दैट इज द पॉजिटिव साइड ऑफ इट।
एक्सक्यूज मी, माई सेल्फ एस के घोष। मैं ये पूछना चाहता हूँ कि हम डिप्लोमेटिक वर्ल्ड में आपके साथ घुस चुके हैं, तो वर्ल्ड थ्रू आउट एंड वुमेन दोनों ही हैं, तो वर्ल्ड लेवल सबसे लिबरल मतलब सोसाइटी, कंट्री तो नहीं कहूँगा, लिबरल सोसाइटी इन रिलेटेड टू जेंडर, जहाँ पर न केवल ऐसा लिबरल है कि बस हम फ्रीली घूम सकते हैं, जिम कुछ भी कभी, वहाँ पर डोमेस्टिक और सोशल वायलेंस वगैरह कम होता हो, जहाँ पर दोनों को रेस्पेक्ट एक दूसरे को बहुत करते हैं। इस सेंस में कौन सी कंट्री सबसे आगे है? थोड़ा सा ब्रीफ एक्सप्लेनेशन के साथ में, एज पर योर नॉलेज।
जहाँ तक मेरा असेसमेंट होगा तो स्कैंडिनेवियन कंट्रीज जो है वो जेंडर इश्यूज पे दूसरों से थोड़ा आगे दिखती हैं, क्योंकि वहाँ महिलाएं अगर आप देखें तो उनके राजनीति में महिलाएं काफ़ी आगे हैं। पर महिलाएं अगर कोई भाग ले रही हैं बराबरी से, तो क्या उसका अर्थ ये है कि वहाँ जेंडर बेस्ड वायलेंस नहीं है? उसके बारे में मुझे कहना थोड़ा मुश्किल है, क्योंकि जेंडर बेस्ड वायलेंस तो वहाँ भी होता है, और दीपा वहाँ रह चुकी है, तो दीपा विल बी बेटर प्लेस टू आंसर दैट।
जी, मैं स्वीडन में थी, जो बीकन है ऑफ जेंडर इक्वालिटी। मैं आपको बता सकती हूँ कि वायलेंस उतना ही है, शायद अंडर रिपोर्टेड है, और हमारी कोई कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल गारंटीज है। फॉर एग्जांपल, अगर हम लोग दो मैन एंड अ वुमन आर डूइंग द सेम जॉब, एटलीस्ट इन गवर्नमेंट हमको सेम सैलरीज मिलती हैं। आपको मालूम है कि वहाँ स्वीडन में मेन एंड वुमेन डूइंग द सेम जॉब्स, वुमन गेट्स पेड लेस। तो I was very surprised when कि कैसे हो सकता है. तो कहते हैं कि men's bargaining tactics are better than women. तो ये जो equality की बात है, वो बोलने वाली बात है, and finger pointing है कि आपके country में कम है और हमारे country में ज़्यादा है. हाँ, politicians, perhaps representation of politicians in parliament etc. ज़्यादा हैं वहाँ. हम and we should do something about it. But हमारे grassroots level पर आप आज देखिए, after the Panchayati Raj system that is there, we have almost 40 to 50% women, जिसकी बात हम नहीं करते हैं. So I think, at least as far as the laws are concerned in our land, I have nothing to be ashamed about. ठीक है, we are a traditional society and there are certain issues there. But ये जो Scandinavia की बात होती है, या anywhere in Europe, मुझे याद है there was once a report on France कि 30% of the women have been victims of domestic violence. So how is it different from any other third world country?
So we quickly take one more last question probably.
Good afternoon.
Or two more questions. Please do it very quickly, yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alisa Khan, and my question is for both Ambassador Ruchi and Ambassador Wadhwa. I am a psychology student, so I want to know how would you describe your experience from an individual human perspective, not as women, not as diplomats, but as human beings who are building connections with other human beings.
Thank you so much. It's good to see a psychology student. That was also my subject, and that's what I also taught Vinay when he was a student, and now he's teaching that. So to talk about human perspective, I think this profession was probably the best use of what I learned in my college, what I learned through my subject. It's not that you are perpetually applying the principles of psychology that you learn, but psychology gives you an understanding. It becomes a part of your system. And that when you apply, you understand people's motivations, you realize that your all 5 fingers are not the same. So you give to each to his capacity. Those things, I think, come very easily if you have studied psychology.
I agree with Ruchi, though I haven't studied psychology. But I want to tell you one other thing, that if you are a kind of person who likes people, who like to make friends, I think this is a wonderful career to do it, because you meet people across the world. And I want to tell you one thing, after years of being abroad and serving in different countries. We were in China, was in most developed countries as well. A country like Japan, which is extremely insular. One thing you realize that human beings are fundamentally the same, and you get past the barriers, and they're all the same, and you can make friends. And I think that is my learning really from this career.
Yes. Last question quickly.
Hello,
Yes.
my name is Tara Chaudhary, and my question is, what do you think is the future of Indian women in India?
The future is what women make of it. So if women study and work hard and go forward, the future will be bright. But if women are deterred by the challenges that they face, then the future will not be so bright.
You see, that sort of answer we get from a diplomat. I would say, quickly pass on the mic to Ambreen. She's got a second.
My last comment that would be just I'm being curious, and we have we have Mr. Suri sitting here, we have Ambassador Wadhwa sitting here. My question to maybe all of you all would be that why, like generally you see a lot of diplomats, they end up becoming politicians. Except for Meera Kumar, how come we haven't seen any women getting into, though you perhaps this exposure makes you smarter than a lot of people, and especially men, especially men, as you said, our navigation power is much more stronger. How come we don't see women from diplomacy become political leaders?
I think Meera Kumar quit service when she was fairly young. Isn't that so, Deepa? Yeah, she could choose an alternate career. But by the time you are 60 years old and you have been a bureaucrat and you've done your, I think your take on life is a bit different.
I think Meera Kumar came from a political family, and I think that's a great connection. That makes people change. There are a few of our colleagues who have joined politics among the men, but women I know there's only been Meera, but this is the reason really. I think she came from a political family, but I don't know whether men are more ambitious politically.
But women are better navigators, right? Let's get Mr. Suri to comment on this very quickly.
Aspect. This particular aspect.
Are you getting not politics?
Into
Well,
politics.
let me talk about Meera Kumar. She's my friend and batchmate.
And what about?
And she had a political advantage, of course. But I think
could you hold your mic
But I think
quite
once her father passed away, somebody had to carry the mantle. And I think she was the right person to carry the mantle, and she demonstrated that's right. But I just want to make a couple of points which, as a very young officer, let me give you the male perspective. I had a female boss for 5 years running, from 1977 to 1982. One of the toughest officers, as they will both testify to, Ambassador Arundhati Ghosh. And I can tell you, I never had this problem with her. And I don't think she had a problem with me. I think it's this male-female issue. I can understand coming from the women's perspective. I have 2 daughters, and I hear this from them all the time. I think it's much easier for men to relate to women bosses than it is for women to relate to men bosses. Sometimes male bosses can be very difficult. No, I'm giving you my perspective. You can disagree. I have no problem with that. But I think my experience in my service and subsequently, I come from a family where I'm surrounded by women, sisters, daughters, nieces, etc. I don't have a problem with that. And no, really, more than that. I think the problem in this circumstance is sometimes a lot of women expect much more from the men that they get, or they should be getting. And I think that's part of the psychological problem in our country. And not just in our country. I think, like Deepa said, this is a problem everywhere in the world. Women are, discriminated against all over the world. And I've served in Britain, etc., and I can tell you the kind of horrors that are committed on women in Britain. If you really read about them, you'll be surprised. But we don't talk about them because it doesn't suit us. I think, as Ruchi said, women have a brilliant future ahead of them. I mean, person to person, I would say, in my experience, most girls stroke women do better than men. For the simple reason that they are driven, and rightly so, and they have more shackles to break than men have. So I'm not saying this because I want to make a point. I'm just saying this, I've seen this in my life. As I said, I'm surrounded by very successful women. So I know where I'm coming from. So, I think good luck to Indian women. You have to fight it out. If you don't fight it out, like Ruchi said, or like Deepa alluded, then you're asking for trouble. But today, I think in India, there is the opportunity. You have equality guaranteed in law, which is not there in most countries. And if you don't use that opportunity, I think you're missing the bus. And the answer to this is education. There is no other answer.
Well, our big round of applause for Sir. And I would like to thank our esteemed guests and speakers here. Thank you very much. The way that we got into the intricacies of the challenges that were faced by women were quite appreciating, and it was quite insightful. Thank you very much. I would quickly put a question to the audience. And the winner would get a book. When was the Indian Foreign Service formally created? Please raise the hands and do not say yes, or you'll be disqualified. Anybody from the audience? Yes, please.
Was it the year 1966?
No. Anybody else? Sir, please provide the mic to the sir. Left, Nishi. Yes.
1952.
No, sir. Somebody said it.
1949.
No, ma'am. No, please provide the mic to. Yes, provide the mic to the young man.
46.
Yes, absolutely. Please,
Thank you.
please come onto the stage. Yes. We were meant to give this book to the winner, but as you suggest. Yes, I'll do it. Can we have a photo of that? Thank you very much. As we conclude this deeply enriching session, I would like to request Reema Huja, a member of society, to please present our esteemed speakers with a memento as a token of our gratitude. Padmash. I say it, man. Padma Shri Bhil artist Bhuribai has created this artwork for Bhopal Literature Festival 2025, depicting the connection between nature, earth, the human being and the environment, and the circularity inherent and imperative to our existence. To our incredible speakers, thank you for sharing your wisdom, creativity and insights, which have deeply inspired us. This memento is a tribute to your contributions and the lasting impact of your words on our hearts and minds. I would say big round of applause for our speakers and the great session that we have just had. The speakers would be available at the desk for questions and signing the copies. Thank you very much. One more round of applause. And we start on with the next session in